1940, Canada began to see greater development in the adult education movement. The focus on the social importance of adult education began to come to the forefront, and people started to question what exactly adult education had to offer them. Initiatives for providing basic adult education to those living in remote geographical areas emerged as a way of instilling a Canadian education to new members of society. This video will explore the National Film Board and the National Farm Radio Forum, which helped to bring adult education to the rural areas of Canada. During this video, please reflect on the following analysis questions. What was the initial purpose of the National Film Board, and how did this change during the Second World War? How did the National Film Board impact the education of adults in Canada during the Second World War? How did the National Farm Radio Forum originate, and what impact did it have on adult education in rural areas? What were the benefits of the National Farm Radio Forum? In 1938, the Government of Canada invited John Grierson, a British documentary filmmaker, to study the state of the government's film production. Up to that date, the Canadian Government Motion Picture Bureau, established in 1918, had been the major Canadian film producer. The results of Grierson's report were included in the National Film Act of 1939, which led to the establishment of the NFB. At the time of its creation, its mandate was to ensure the production and distribution of films designed to help Canadians in all parts of Canada to understand the modes of existence and problems in other parts of Canada. Shortly after the establishment of the NFB, Canada joined the war effort, which caused the film production of the NFB to be geared towards the patriotic effort and the creation of propaganda in support of the Second World War. In 1940, the NFB launched a series called Canada Carries On, which consisted of morale-boosting theoretical shorts. The success of the Canada Carries On led to the creation of the World in Action series, which purpose was to present Canadians with the synthesis of events taking place around the world during the war, along with information about their potential impact on life in Canada. The NFB helped to give Canada an image internationally as a distinct and independent country, at a time when this was particularly crucial. For people living beyond the urban centres in Canada, there was little access to commercial cinema. As a result, the NFB set up a network of traveling projectionists to help screen its films, and created rural film circuits as well as industrial and union circuits. Each rural film circuit existed within a well-defined area. Screenings were held for free in libraries, parish halls, schools, and civic centres. Some of these circuits were entirely paid for by the NFB, and in other cases they were paid for in cooperation with agricultural and educational organizations in the different provinces. Approximately 1,700 screenings were held each year, with a monthly audience of about 250,000 people. The industrial circuits presented films to workers, while union circuits offered programs to local unions across the country in conjunction with the Canadian Congress of Labour, the Trades and Labour Congress, and the Workers' Educational Association. The NFB was also associated with continuing education programs, particularly those at McGill University and the University of Alberta. After the war, production expanded into new areas. The first dramatic films were made, new techniques were explored in animation, and the information film and production for TV were initiated. In 1950, NFB initiated the first film festival in Canada, called the Yorkton International Documentary Film Festival. And in 1967, the NFB created Challenge for Change, which was a program that lasted until 1979 and encouraged people to collectively analyze their situations, tell their stories, seek solutions, and engage in community development. During the 1970s and early 1980s, the National Film Board produced a series of vignettes, some of which aired on CBC and other Canadian broadcasters during commercial breaks. The vignettes became popular because of their cultural depiction of Canada and because they represented its changing state. January 2009 marked the 70th anniversary of the NFB. Since the NFB's founding in 1939, it has created over 13,000 productions and won over 5,000 awards, including 12 Oscars and more than 90 Genies. Over 2,000 NFB productions can be streamed online at the nfb.ca screening room, as well as via partnerships with the world's leading video portals. The NFB also has a growing family of apps for smartphones and tablets, which helps to deliver the experience of NFB films to Canadians everywhere. The National Farm Radio Forum, or NFRF, was launched as an educational experiment by the CBC, along with the Canadian Association for Adult Education and the Canadian Federation of Agriculture. It had been recognized that there was a need to extend adult education to the rural parts of the country and to provide rural groups with a new incentive for action, greater understanding of their problems, and a widening sense of community. The NFRF attempted to provide the communication infrastructure needed for rural education and social activism by exploring the democratic potential of the radio. The NFRF brought together groups of neighbours across rural Canada who met in homes, community halls, schoolhouses, or church basements to listen to a weekly half-hour program on a single farm issue. Using accompanying printed study guides, the groups then discussed the broadcast and sent in a summary for follow-up on a subsequent show. This allowed the listeners to take part in their education by sharing their views and ideas across the country. The broadcasts were aired every Monday night from 1942 to 1965, and the show's motto was Read, Listen, Discuss, Act. The weekly themes of the broadcasts were developed by a national planning group made up of farmers from across the country. Topics ranged from agricultural policy and international trade to community and family life. The weekly radio broadcasts helped to unite a culturally diverse population across a vast physical distance through the common interests and lifestyles of agriculturally based communities. It contributed to the development of a sense of community both at the local and national levels. The NFRF often resulted in positive group action projects in the community, such as cooperatives, new forums, and folk schools. As well, the educational aspects of the forum led to other forms of political action and community development. Unlike most farm organizations at the time, the NFRF included both men and women. In addition, by reporting the conclusions arrived at the groups in the next broadcast, the members were given a collective voice. In 1952, UNESCO commissioned research into the NFRF techniques. Its report was published in 1954, and consequently, India, Ghana, and France began using the NFRF's models in their programs. At the NFRF's peak, about 27,000 people were active participants, though the numbers began to fall in the early 1950s, culminating in the cancellation of the broadcast in 1965. A few explanations for its decline have been offered, such as the arrival of television, the euphoric and relaxed post-war atmosphere, the changing economics of the farming sector, and the limited series of topics which resulted in repetition. Despite its demise in 1965, a number of those originally involved went on to found in 1979 the Farm Radio Forum International, which by 2008 was involved in developing community-based farm-centered broadcasting in many third world countries. Please reflect on the following synthesis questions. How has the National Film Board's mandate changed over time, and what impact has this had on adult education in Canada? In what ways did the National Farm Radio Forum lead to social change? What are the similarities and differences between the National Film Board and the National Farm Radio Forum? And why do you think that the National Film Board still exists today, whereas the National Farm Radio Forum fell by the wayside?